I'm Reuben Collins. I'm Chair of the Transportation Planning Board, and I call the TPB's January 18th, 2023 meeting to order. Again, welcome to all. Those of you here with me in person and those joining us virtually. I trust the audio and video connections are working well for those of you participating virtually. As always, please call, email, or text staff if you're experiencing any technical difficulties. We continue to live stream the audio and video of this meeting on TPB's YouTube channel. I will briefly review the process we will follow for the hybrid meeting today. Members in the room, please use the microphone when you speak, and please be close to the microphone so that those online and those watching the broadcast can hear you. Those participating online, a friendly reminder to mute your microphone always. And importantly, to unmute your mic and state your name and jurisdiction when you speak. Members who are participating virtually, please know that staff is monitoring the chat. So feel free to post your comments or questions in the chat, and staff will get to it directly to me. You can also use the raised hand icon if you wish to be recognized. I will also make sure to call on you during discussions and votes. While we've started accepting comments from the public in person during our in-person meetings, we're continuing the practice of receiving public comments online. After staff's call or roll call today, I will first recognize members of the public who are here to provide their comments, and then I'll ask staff to report on comments received online. A copy of comments received online is available to us on the meeting webpage. We will now start with a roll call of board members participating in the meeting today and confirm that we have a quorum. Lynn, would you please begin the roll call?
Great, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. So I'm going to start by listing the agency or jurisdiction, and if you could state your name, we'll capture your attendance. And yeah, and if I go too fast, we'll be monitoring the chat, and I'll catch you as you come in the room. So starting with the District of Columbia, District Council, Ms. Brooke Pinto. District Council, Charles Allen. District Council, Christina Henderson.
Hi, this is Heather Edelman. She'll be joining as she can, but I'll be in her place today, mostly.
Perfect, thank you. District Department of Transportation. Mark Rawlings and Anna's supposed to come too. District Office of Planning. Moving on to Maryland, City of Bowie.
Maddie Bizerto, City of Bowie.
Thanks, Maddie. Charles County. Thanks, Ruben. College Park.
Patrick Wyan, City of College Park.
Thanks. Frederick County.
Mark Mishler, President.
Thanks. City of Frederick.
Kelly Russell, President.
City of Gaithersburg.
Neil Harris, President.
City of Greenbelt. City of Laurel.
Brian Lee, present.
Montgomery County.
Marilyn Balcom, present.
Thank you.
Gary Aaron
Montgomery County, oh great, I was going to say Montgomery County Executive. I got you, Gary, thank you. Prince George's County. Prince George's County Executive. City of Rockville. Tacoma Park. Maryland Department of Transportation.
Earl Lewis, present.
Thank you. Maryland House of Delegates. Maryland Senate. Moving on to Virginia, City of Alexandria. Arlington County. City of Fairfax.
Catherine Reed, present.
Welcome. Fairfax County.
Walter Alcorn here.
Thank you. And James Walkinshaw is here. Thanks. Falls Church.
Dave Snyder.
Thanks, Dave. Fauquier County. Loudoun County.
Kristen Umstadt, present.
Corinne
Anyone else
Sigsbury.
from Loudoun? Oh, Corinne, I gotcha. Okay. That's Prince William. City of Manassas.
Pam Sebesky here.
Thanks, Pam. City of Manassas Park.
Matt Rischel here.
Thanks. Prince William County.
Ann Wheeler here.
Victor Angry here.
Great, thank you. Virginia Department of Transportation.
Bill Cutler here.
Thank you. Virginia House of Delegates.
How you doing?
And Virginia Senate. WMATA.
Allison Davis here.
And Takis came in. Great, hi, thanks. Ex officio members, we have Federal Highway Administration,
Sandra Jackson.
Federal Transit Administration.
And Koenig, Federal Transit.
Hi, Dan, thanks. National Capital Planning Commission. Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. And National Park Service. Okay, great. That concludes the roll call. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Lynn. Now for public comments from those who are here in the room.
We had one person sign up, Bill Pugh. There he is. He's right here.
Good afternoon, board members, and welcome to the new year. Welcome to board members. 2023 presents a lot of opportunity for TPB's leadership this year on pressing problems facing the region. And I'm here on behalf of the Coalition for Smarter Growth, and we look forward to collaborating with you all this year. Want to speak to you on two things. One is the TPB's work plan, the UPWP. The other is the Visualized 2050 plan. On the work plan, TPB set aside funding and programming in its current work plan, and we see that in the work plan for next year to advance climate change, greenhouse gas mitigation activities. In this past summer, TPB's board voted to endorse 14 strategies to pursue and to explore further. When I inquired with staff which strategies were being pursued, staff said that right now it's electric vehicles. That was the only strategy that is being pursued right now. And electric vehicles are essential. That's great. There's the auto show this week. I think there's a lot of activity going on. But there are 12 other strategies that are equally important to getting our region to meet the climate targets that you adopted. And we think that TPB can be a leader on this. The regional cooperation is needed to advance these strategies and show what they mean. Specifically, the mode shift and travel demand strategies TPB's climate study found are essential, as well as electric vehicles, to meeting the targets. And we only have 7 years. So I asked the board to see what TPB can do to advance those strategies in the current fiscal year, and also what is it going to do in its coming UPWP for next year. And then the other item I wanted to speak on, Visualize 2050. On the agenda today is a solicitation for projects, the technical input solicitation. And this also lays out some of the process for zero-based budgeting. From our perspective and from the board's perspective and calling for the early update, we would like to see some more objective standards for the zero-based budgeting. Right now, all the projects have to do is answer a question, and they can put whatever they want in it. It's just like the process 2 years ago. And the board, in calling for this update, really wanted a change in the status quo and to really consider how these projects move forward, the regional policies that TPB has adopted. And I do want to applaud staff for including an upfront round of public engagement as part of the Visualize 2050 process. This is going to be critical because the next 6 months are where you have an opportunity to change the status quo, to put in projects that really advance the goals and the policies. So urge you to take advantage of this opportunity this year to really move forward on the climate change targets and your other policy objectives. Thank you.
So again, thank you for those comments. We also know that there were comments that were submitted online, and so Lynn, at this time, will summarize those comments.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chair Collins. Between the December 2022 TPB meeting and noon yesterday, Tuesday, January 17th, the TPB received 2 comments submitted via email. A memo with a summary of the comments, as well as the entire comments, can be found on our TPB meeting page. Arlene Montemorano submitted an email forwarding a 2023 article about highway widening and congestion. And the second comment came from Tad Aburn, a former Maryland Department of the Environment representative on our Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee. He provided written comment, letters, and a concept paper asking TPB to consider updating regional policies and projects that may contribute to environmental justice issues. As I mentioned, all the comments are found on our meeting page. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Again, thank you. And so I'm going to follow the lead of my predecessor, Pamela Sabisky. I'm going to stay with our agenda very clearly. So at the very top is approval of the December 21st, 2022 meeting minutes.
So approved.
Is there a second? And please state, please state your name and jurisdiction.
Pam Sabesky, Manassas City.
And second.
Second from Kristen Umstadt Loudon.
Are there any corrections or additions to the meeting minutes? Not. For the vote, then, are there any nays or abstentions from those in the room?
I abstain, Fairfax City.
Marilyn Balcom, Montgomery County. Abstain.
Okay. And any others? Staff-wise, are there any members online who wish to be recognized?
Not at this time. Thank you.
With that stated, and again for the vote, are there any nays or abstentions from those in the room? No. Okay. So it appears that this passes. So the next item on the agenda is the technical committee report.
Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. The technical committee met on Friday, January 6, 2023. There's a link to the meeting materials can be found in the meeting package. 3 items were reviewed for inclusion on today's January TPB meeting. These included the committee was briefed on an outline and preliminary budget for the Unified Planning Work Program as well as 2024. Board will get a full draft at its February meeting. The committee was briefed on results of the federally required environmental justice analysis of the 2022 Visualize 2045. Using the TPB approved equity emphasis areas, the plan does not have any disproportionately high or significantly adverse impact on income or race. So that's the plan on approved. Staff related to schedule, key resources that will support the next technical input solicitation. Additionally, 3 items were presented for information and discussion. These included the committee was briefed on the next steps for the 2024 plan update financial analysis. Staff is developing a web page that catalogs TPB online planning tools and related resources. The committee was briefed on this initiative and received a demonstration of the draft web page. Additionally, TPB staff reviewed the TPB recent resiliency planning activities and provided an overview of future activities in that regard. Finally, the update that we were expected to receive for the 2024 Resource Level Survey 7-day panel evaluation was occurred until the February meeting. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. I have any questions.
And I didn't properly recognize Mr. Rawlings, who is the chair of the technical committee. And at this time, are there any questions for him directly or to staff? Okay, thank you. So now we'll move to the Community Advisory Committee report. There is a written summary from the January 12th, 2022 meeting. Ms. Ashley Hudson is the chair of the CAC. Ashley, is there anything that you would like to highlight or expand on?
Yes, Chair Collins, thank you. Members of the Transportation Planning Board, first, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to represent the Community Advisory Committee and share with you the thoughts, ideas, and motivations from a widespread community of individuals who think deeply about the ways in which transportation affects their everyday lives. I've really enjoyed my time as chair of the CAC and thank Vice Mayor Sebeski for suggesting I apply for this group. And I'm hopeful the connection between the TPB and CAC will continue to strengthen in the coming years and that the joint events that we have discussed will come to fruition. I would also like to thank TPB staff for taking our thoughts and suggestions with open ears and having fun with it. Considering over the last two-year term, the majority of the group never met each other in person, there was definitely some really great conversation and bonding that happened online. So thank you all again. It's been an awesome opportunity. So to begin my report, at last Thursday's CAC meeting, we were joined by WMATA, who gave a presentation on the Better Bus Initiative. Seeing the current maps and imagining how they will change was exciting for our group, and there was a lot of enthusiasm around the idea of cross-jurisdictional routes. Regarding bus routes as they are now, CAC members said buses are often late because existing routes are along already congested roadways. Several people said the rider does not care what bus line they're on as long as it gets them where they're going and gets them there safely. However, other members argued that hubs or stops that have several bus lines that intersect should have better signage to indicate the direction and route of each bus. There was also emphasis on creating bus routes that connect activity centers within each state and across states, in addition to the DC-centric routes that already exist. There was discussion about faster trips, which in WMATA terms did not only mean dodging traffic, but trips with less stops, as in less inter-neighborhood routes and more hub-to-hub stops. A CAC member from Montgomery County expressed interest in a fast track to Tyson's Corner, to which several CAC members responded, why don't we build another bridge across the Potomac to create a faster track from Montgomery to Tyson's Corner? There's strong desire among the CAC members, several of the very enthusiastic CAC members, for another Potomac River crossing, myself included in those who have that desire, and I would like to leave you with that. So this concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you all.
At this time, are there any questions for Ms. Hudson? Staff, are there any members online who wish to be recognized? So before we let you go, I want to take a moment to thank you for serving so effectively as the chair of the Community Advisory Committee this past year. You conclude your term as chair this month, and as a board, we have a certificate of appreciation for you, and it reads, the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board at the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments hereby presents this recognition of gratitude and esteem to Ashley Hudson for her distinguished service to the TPB and the people of the region as TPB Community Advisory Committee Chair 2021 through 2022, and it's signed by Pam, the TPB Chair of 2022, and this is for you.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, great. Thank you all. It's been an awesome opportunity.
So we will be convening a new CAC under Agenda Item 7 today, and I will also be appointing the new chair. Now to the report from Conti. We have a written summary of the January 6th Steering Committee meeting and a report on other items of interest. I was unable to attend the meeting, and I thank James Walkinshaw, the TPB's Vice Chair, for leading the meeting. Conti, is there anything you'd like to highlight or anything new to share with the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. First off, I would like to acknowledge and welcome a few new members to the board. Ms. Jessica Fitzpatrick, the County Executive from Frederick County, Ms. Marilyn Balcombe, Montgomery County Council, Mayor Catherine Reed from the City of Fairfax, although I didn't see or hear Mr. Eric Olson from Prince George's County. So welcome to them, to the TPB. You have a copy of my written report, so I will not review all of it. Instead, I'll provide a very brief overview. The steering committee met on January 6th, and it approved 2 amendments to the TIP. The first was requested by Maryland DOT that added a net amount of $49.3 million of federal and state funds to 6 different projects. 4 of those are existing projects, and 2 of them are new. Details on all of these projects and the funding breakdown are on pages 4 through 27. And on page 5 is a summary of all of the 6 projects. One specific project I would like to note, actually there are 2 projects, but one of them is the detailed study of the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit that has received $5 million in federal funds through a congressionally directed spending appropriation. The project is a high-capacity, fixed-route rapid transit service that is anticipated to operate in a dedicated, grade-separated transitway, almost 19 miles long, along Maryland Route 5 and US 301. I chose to highlight this project because this is one of the policy priorities or aspirational initiatives that the TPB has endorsed. Earlier, we heard comments about what more can the TPB members and their agencies do to help climate change apart from transitioning our vehicles to clean fuel. This is one of the strategies. TPB explicitly had called on all of its member jurisdictions to think and to implement BRT types of systems throughout the region, not necessarily from one point outside the region to the core, but any place else in the almost 4,000 square mile region possible. And this is one of the new studies in a jurisdiction that really has no transit, but that has also seen a significant amount of growth. So I thought that receiving $10 million in federal and state funds for a detailed study at least is a good start towards that end. So that's the reason I chose to highlight that. The other TIP amendment was requested by VDOT, which adds a net total of $115 million to 4 different projects in Prince William County. And the projects are the existing Soapstone Connector project and 3 other new projects. One of them is the CSX overpass at Newington Road. Details of these amendments are on pages 28 through 38. Under announcements and updates on page 40 is a listing of the board's meetings for this year, 2023, including those that are planned as all virtual meetings. There would be 3 such meetings, February, September, and November. And a friendly reminder that the TPB is currently accepting applications from your agencies for 2 grants. The first one is the Transportation and Land Use Grant, and the second one is the Regional Roadway Safety Grant. March 3rd is the deadline. An optional voluntary abstract could be submitted that is due January 24th. The good news this year is that we have been able to re-examine the limits of funding grants, and I'm happy to report that we have increased the maximum funding a project can get from 60,000 to 80,000. This acknowledges that the funding amounts had not been changed in a while, and the cost of service and the cost of planning has indeed gone up. And one other good news update, this is also in my packet. The US EPA has finalized the national clean air standards to reduce emissions from heavy-duty trucks, beginning with the 2027 model year. This is a first update in 20 years. Earlier, we heard comments about climate change. Opportunities and action at the local level, very critical. Action at the regional level, very important. Action at the state level is also very important. But federal actions have a completely different scale and magnitude of the difference it can make. And this rule is a classic example. For example, without this rule, by 2045, 90% of all NOx emissions in our region that creates ground level ozone would have been coming from heavy duty trucks. With this one single rule, that is now estimated to go down by 50%. So I think TPB in the past has really called for and highlighted the opportunities for federal initiatives to support what you all are doing at the local level and what the state is doing at the state level. So that's definitely a piece of good news. And TPB had returned comments to the federal docket, urging that this rule be finalized, and I'm really happy to note that it has been done. Lastly, two items that are not in the report. COG's Climate, Energy, Environment Policy Committee is hosting a special event at this year's auto show, and Mr. Carantones, a member of the TPB, who also chairs the Climate, Energy, Environment Policy Committee, has been very instrumental in arranging this key special event. The auto show this year has a focus on electric vehicles. As has been noted, the TPB's work clearly indicated that transitioning our vehicles to clean fuel has the greatest potential for reducing on-road greenhouse gases. And that's the focus. We had earlier sent an email invitation to you all to register. I hope many of you plan to attend, and I hope to see as many of you as possible tomorrow at the event. And lastly, and importantly, I'm very pleased to inform you that the COG's incoming executive director, Clark Mercer, is here today. Clark. So we had previously sent you information about COG retiring executive director Chuck Bean and having hired Clark Mercer. We are very thrilled to have Clark. Today is Clark's second day. He's been here probably all night, catching up on all types of COG businesses. We are very pleased that he has chosen to spend some time with us this afternoon. I'm working with Clark. We plan to have him share some remarks and share some thoughts with you during the March meeting. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Conti? What about online?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So here's the part where I provide chairman's comments. And my thoughts were, if we were running a little behind, I would opt away from any actual prepared remarks. We're actually doing very well. So far, so good. I want to keep the momentum rolling. I want to first really stress that my goal as chair is to efficiently facilitate the overall agenda for TPB, thus assuring that all of our regional partners and interests are braided together to create a full version of what a regional approach to transportation planning actually looks like. So that, in a nutshell, is what I'd like to accomplish. But I will start by wishing everyone a Happy New Year. I hope that 2023 will be the year when the region fully bounces back from the disruptions caused by the COVID pandemic. By the region, I mean the people, our communities, businesses, and the economy, and the ridership on our public transportation systems, and the regrettable trend of higher roadway fatalities and crashes that we saw during the pandemic years. We hope that this retreats and we make progress towards zero deaths. We here at the TPB can look forward to several exciting opportunities to advance the region's mobility and accessibility goals. We will kick off the update to the region's long-range transportation plan ahead of the federally prescribed schedule. This will allow us to take stock of and revisit our transportation investments and decisions to reflect new administrations, a new federal approach and funding, and the region's multidisciplinary goals that include reducing congestion, increasing transit usage, addressing climate change, reducing roadway deaths, and overall making our transportation systems more resilient. What I recall from 2022 is that this board did not shy away from tackling several tough issues, be it the type of transportation projects we want in our region to address the congestion and accommodate the growth we expect, the issue of reducing greenhouse gases from the on-road sector to help the region attain its climate goals, working to improve roadway safety, and other issues and other topics. The board took on these topics, had respectful, technically sound discussions that were informed by data, and developed consensus on the actions that we inevitably took. We are a body that represents a vast region. We have 24 different localities, counties, cities, some 100% urban centers, others that are emerging urban areas with considerable rural traits, some with a vast array of rich public transportation systems, serving them others, some which others do not have in terms of public transportation within our region. We are different in many ways. But as a TPB, ensuring that the interests of every single jurisdiction is reviewed and taken seriously is of highest importance for us. I'm very positive about the prospects for us as a body working to address these issues and making progress. My optimism is based not just on hope, but on what I've seen here at TPB the last 2 years. I'm very impressed and happy about the collegiality and collaborative spirit I've seen amongst members to our work here. Of course, we don't always agree, but we focus on areas of agreement. We take steps forward since we all agree on the basic issues that are important: improving roadway safety, reducing congestion, addressing climate change by reducing greenhouse gases, building a robust public transportation system and transit-oriented communities throughout the region, and in all of this, work together towards ensuring that we consider equity and keep in mind the traditionally underserved residents that live here in this DMV area. So I want to thank you for electing me as chair for this year, and I look forward to working with all of you to make sure that long-term transportation plans that are developed will work for all of us in the region in an equitable and sustainable manner. Before we get into the other items on the agenda, I want to take note of one change to the agenda. We will table agenda item 9, the environmental justice analysis that staff has done on the long-range transportation plan that we adopted in July of last year. Unfortunately, the lead staffer, Sergio, who would have been giving that briefing, is unexpectedly taken ill. So we wish Sergio a full and speedy recovery. And we will bring that back as soon as we possibly can. So thank you for your indulgence, and I look forward to working in this capacity in our region. Thank you. So for our first item on the agenda today, I did mention that we would be covering a new community advisory committee. Every 2 years, the TPB appoints residents of the Washington region to serve as members on the TPB's Community Advisory Committee for the upcoming 2 years. This is what we will do under this item. Ms. Marino will brief us on this work and importantly present the slate of members for the CAC. I will add this. I and the two vice chairs, Christina Henderson from the district and James Walkinshaw from Fairfax, worked with staff. We received a complete package of all the applicants and reviewed the candidates from each of our jurisdictions and helped develop the list of nominees being presented to you today. So after the presentation, I will ask for a motion to appoint the slate of residents nominated to serve on the 2023 CAC. With a second, I will ask for a vote. There is no resolution associated with this action.
Okay, there we go. Hi, my name is Marcela Moreno. I am a relatively new planner at the TPB. I'll take this moment since I think I'm probably a new face to a lot of you all, or you've just seen me on WebEx. So my name is Marcela. I'm originally from Texas. I moved to DC relatively recently. It feels relatively recent, but it was during the pandemic, so about a year and a half ago. I started off my planning career working in renewable energy policy, specifically around zoning and policy for wind and energy in Georgia. And from there, started my transportation planning career as a transit planner with the city of Asheville in North Carolina. I come to TPB from the Community Transportation Association of America, a nonprofit that operates a federally funded technical assistance center that provides resources and direct technical assistance to small urban, rural, and tribal transit agencies to implement emerging transit technologies. So I'm really excited to be here. In 3 days is my 2-month anniversary with the TPB, so pretty fresh. So we'll get started talking about the Community Advisory Committee. So I'm going to present to you the nominations from the 2023-2024 CAC from the TPB officers. So a little bit about the process. Staff received applications from October 27th until December 5th. Staff advertised these applications via the TPB website, the newsletter, and social media. I will note we did use a boosted Facebook post, so a paid advertising campaign, which garnered a lot of interest, which was really great to see. And we're also very thankful to the TPB member jurisdictions that shared the call out with their constituents. It was really helpful to get the word out. So total, we received 77 completed applications. Just as a reference point, the last call for CAC applications, we saw a little bit over 40. So that was an increase. So our outreach efforts were successful. We saw representation from 17 TPB member jurisdictions and 71 people who had not previously served on the CAC, so a lot of fresh faces in the applicant pool. We also received 11 applications from people living in equity emphasis areas. So a little bit about the applicants selected. As a reminder, there's 24 total members on the CAC with at least 5 members from each state and the District of Columbia. Total, we received or selected 9 from Maryland, 9 from Virginia, and 6 from DC. We had 13 member jurisdictions represented, and I'm really pleased to say that all age categories, with the exception of under 18, are represented in the cohort that we're presenting to you today. 6 applicants have previously served on the CAC, which is great for continuity and really acclimating the new members to the work that the CAC has done in the past. I believe one member that is returning on this slate has been involved with the CAC since 2010. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge and history there. 5 selected applicants are from equity emphasis areas as well. So I won't read out every single name, but I will call out in the meeting materials, there's a summary of each of the nominated applicants. We included a summary of their statement of purpose for why they chose to apply and why they would like to serve on the CAC, as well as a snapshot of their community involvement. So the next steps, the board is asked to approve or make changes and then approve the nominations for the 2023 to 2024 CAC. After that approval, Chair Collins will announce the CAC chair for 2023. And the next meeting for the CAC will be February 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. And that will definitely be a virtual meeting, and there may be a hybrid option associated with that. And that's all I've got. Thank you, everyone, and great to see people in person and on WebEx.
Are there any questions?
Question from Loudon. That was great, thank you, and I'm so glad you're here. Is it possible to find out where the equity emphasis areas are from which some of our applicants came, so that we know, like in Loudon, if we're doing an adequate job of getting the word out?
Yeah, I can work on developing a visualization or map to provide and send that out to the TPB.
If it's not too much time of a time burden, I know I would appreciate seeing that.
Awesome. Yeah, I can definitely make that happen.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? So we need a motion. Okay, so we moved for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any further comments? Are there any nays? Are there any abstentions? So with that stated, it appears that the slate as recognized has been passed. And at this time, so it's my responsibility to announce the chair of the, and that would be Mr. Richard Wallace from Charles County, who would be chair of the CAC. Okay, now we're into our information items. The first information item is both a TPB 101 and an outline of the work activities our staff will be undertaking in the next fiscal year. Starting July 1 of this year, we will get a detailed budget presentation next month. I'd like that we get this overview at the start of the year because this will be helpful to all of us, both returning and new members. So if you could, Lynn, please take it away.
Great, thank you, Chair Collins. So when people ask you, what does the TPB do? What do you tell them? I'm looking around the room. Anybody? So if you tell them that the TPB does 3 main things, then you know what you're doing and you can tune me out. I'm just joking, I'm still looking around the room here. All right, so I've been either a board member on your side or this side of the chair for 18 years, and I'm telling you there's still nuances of this process. So you guys are going to find something in this presentation that's new to you. So the TPB does three things. One, we have a ton of federal requirements we have to meet. Two, we serve as a forum for regional coordination. And three, we provide data to decision makers. The TPB's influence is indirect. As we kick off the new year, I'd like to take the opportunity to elaborate on all the federal responsibilities that the TPB has, as we are the Federal Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia urbanized area, as well as those of Frederick and Waldorf, Maryland. The Unified Planning Work Program is the TPB's annual budget, and it's the document where we write down everything staff does and plans to do. This month, we are going to talk about the basic MPO requirements, which is essentially how you can navigate the process and get the most out of your time with us. And I will elaborate on what we can and frankly can't do as an MPO. The main takeaway from today's presentation is that I hope you will be reminded of the many federal requirements that we are responsible for together as a region in a continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive manner, and that every effort is made to try to synchronize board interests with our required products. Next month, I'll talk about specific products and activities that we plan to undertake in fiscal 2024, which starts in 6 months. The board will be asked to approve our UPWP in March. All right. All right, so what exactly does the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process focus on? So you are likely most familiar with your local planning, programming, and project selection processes, and in Virginia, there's another layer of sub-regional activities. There are also many sub-regional entities that conduct planning and programming activities, like NVTA, NVTC, WMATA, Maryland National Capital Planning Commission. They all have their own roles, own boards even, and responsibilities. I call them sub-regional because they all come together here at the TPB, at the metropolitan regional scale. The TPB does not participate in project development activities. The TPB does not look at individual projects. We do, however, look at all of them together at the same time. And each project is an important piece of our regional puzzle. If any of these local, sub-regional, or state agencies want to spend federal funding, or if their projects impact air quality, it doesn't matter how each project came to be, they have to be part of the TPB's process. It's the separate regional federal metropolitan transportation planning process that we focus on here at the TPB. We do ask you to think regionally, but yet act locally back at home, and staff is here to help you. All right, the mission, if you will, of an MPO has largely been defined for us by our federal partners. It is to implement the Federal Metropolitan Transportation Planning process, 23 CFR Part 450, Subpart C, and 49 CFR Part 613. We serve as a representative group of local stakeholders. We carry out the 3C process. It is a continuing process. It basically never stops. For example, members come and go, look around at the room, look at our new faces. I'm aware of at least 4 new folks, right? It's cooperative. It's consensus-based. It's comprehensive, it's multimodal, and multidisciplinary. We are required to develop a long-range plan and a short-range transportation improvement program. We are required to demonstrate how projects in both are paid for, otherwise known as fiscal constraint. We are required to apply a specific air quality conformity analysis on the projects in both. We are also required to engage in performance-based planning and programming, PBPP, which is the application of performance management principles to achieve desired performance outcomes for the multimodal transportation system. These requirements also specify how to develop these products and what needs to be in them. We also work in conjunction with state air and transportation agencies to meet Federal Clean Air Act standards in accordance with 40 CFR Part 93. Okay, great, so we have all these federal rules to follow, but what does that actually mean? So the process is supposed to shape what goes into those plans and programs. Let me say that again. The process is supposed to shape what goes into those plans and programs, both now and into future plans and programs. This means taking your projects that were developed at the local, sub-regional, or state level and looking at them through our regional lens, using our regionally established policies, which we summarized for you in the fall. I'll share them again with you later with our technical input solicitation. The EJ analysis results that now you're going to have to wait another month for. And an equity lens. and providing that information to you as the implementing agencies to use as these projects move forward and as you are making decisions about what projects to fund next. Gentle reminder, transportation projects take years, plural, to develop and implement. So actually, most of the data we provide to you now will shape our future plans and programs. So why do the many details matter here? If you look at this map, every project in this massive 3,500 square mile area, if your implementing agency plans to fund it with federal funding, or if a project impacts air quality, it doesn't matter how those projects evolved, they still have to be part of our process. Remember, by the time a project is even qualified to be part of the TPB's process, some level of public approval has already occurred. So you will focus on this next month when you see our zero-based budget list, so just kind of keep that on the side. Right now, there are $223 billion forecasted in Visualize 2045, our current plan, that we plan to spend in the next 22 years. And there is currently $12.8 billion that you have programmed in our current 2023 to 2026 TIP. That's money already approved by your agencies to be spent. But not a dime of that funding can flow or be spent in our region without your agencies putting it in our TIP, and after you approve it and demonstrate fiscal constraint, or without our process. So we have 44 members. We are the 9th largest MPO in the nation in population, the 16th largest in planning area. As part of the 3C process, we do 3 main things here at the TPB. We prepare plans and programs that the federal government must approve in order for federal aid transportation funding to flow to our region. We provide technical resources for consensus building and decision making, and we provide a forum for regional coordination. So as you know, we have a lot of federal checkboxes that must be checked. However, there are also opportunities to synchronize board interests along with those federal regulations. One example is our approval of the greenhouse gas reduction goals and strategies, which are included in our plan, but they're not federally required. Now, I'm reminding you of all these responsibilities because these are some of the things we need to focus on as we prepare our staff workload for the next year. So how do we plan and document the staff workload? We do this through our Unified Planning Work Program. This is the document that defines how we carry out the MPO activities and what exactly they are. It basically serves as the TPB staff work scope for the upcoming fiscal year. The UPWP is only one of a few documents that the USDOT actually approves, and it provides the federal authority to draw down the federal funding so staff can conduct the process and keep the transportation system funded. I do want to point out that all the federal work is actually we're being audited right now as we speak. We're under our federal certification review. So, and then we'll be meeting with our federal partners in March, and as part of their evaluation, we'll get the results this summer. So hopefully we're meeting everything we need to meet, but we're pretty confident we are. All right, next month I'll spend some time highlighting the proposed UPWP revenues and expenditures, but right now we start our budget process assuming that we get basically the same amount of funding. And this time around, we'll get a little IIJA bump up. We can reasonably expect this assumption because there is only one way to spend metropolitan transportation funding. It automatically comes to us. However, unlike many MPOs in the United States, we actually only get the bare minimum of funding, and that funding is wholly directed to conducting the metropolitan transportation planning process. So MPO expenditures, what are you getting for your money? And I deliberately say your money because everyone at the table at least provides a 10% match based on population. The state DOTs pick up a larger tab than the rest of you. They pay 10% on behalf of each state, and the federal government is paying 80%. So first off, we're essentially staff to you, our members. We have a talented staff of 50 people that focus completely on the sometimes extremely technical work, and we are always ready to help you with complicated transportation planning topics. This slide tries to summarize how all of our work fits together, all while making sure we're keeping our federal and state oversight partners happy. We spend a lot of resources generating data and information, quality checking it, flowing it, if you will, across the arrows between and among our various products. This month I will talk about our own ongoing activities, but next month I'll come back and we'll talk about the new, more specific activities we'll be taking in fiscal 2024. All right, now for the fun stuff, what you can expect and what we do every year. This is our committee and subcommittee structure. We utilize our 14 subcommittees to help us both disseminate and get feedback information on data, products, and to make sure we are on the right track with your needs and with the federal requirements. We provide a forum for regional coordination. All of our tasks contain some amount of coordination activities. This means bringing staff from 44 member agencies and jurisdictions together for meetings, and it's also working within our agency to more fully utilize our strengths across our teams and across our departments. We spend a lot of time organizing and hosting these various subject matter expert committees, not only to help us check our federal boxes, but to provide you with opportunities you wouldn't otherwise have. The single best way to navigate our process is to pay attention to what is going on at the committees and to read our TPB News blog post. We're hoping you meet regularly with your technical committee rep because we know that 2 hours a month is probably not enough time to fully understand and appreciate all that we have here at the TPB. Also, another tidbit, it's the staff intent that every action item appears on the TPB agenda twice. That means that first it appears as a heads up, and then the next month for approval. So we are regional representative government. That means that each member at the table is representing their entire jurisdiction or agency. We absolutely recognize how difficult it can be when there are last-minute changes, so don't hesitate to ask about potential unintended consequences if these changes are happening at any point in time. Okay, the TPB funds and implements regional programs by providing consultant services to members in several program areas. We seek to enhance transportation and land use coordination through our Transportation Land Use Connections program, known as TLC, where we support planning for vibrant and accessible communities. This technical assistance program has provided our jurisdictions with consultant support for 167 projects since 2007 for nearly $7.5 million. A good example of synchronizing board interests is how we developed our relatively new Regional Roadway Safety Program. Through our PBPP, or Performance-Based Planning and Programming safety discussions, safety was identified as a priority, and we were able to provide an opportunity to start to address what we can. The RRSP, our safety program, has funded 14 projects since 2020 for $750,000. Right now, both the TLC and our RRSP solicitations are currently underway. TPB implements programs on behalf of members. We promote transportation alternatives through our Commuter Connections program, our bicycle and pedestrian programs, and through our responsibilities for the Transportation Alternatives Set-Aside Program grants, our TAP program. TPB offers 2 federal grant opportunities. One is the TAP program. We've selected 149 projects for DC, Maryland, and Virginia since 2014 for a total of over $66 million. The TPB's Enhanced Mobility Grant Program aims to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities throughout the region by removing barriers to transportation services and expanding transportation mobility options available. Since 2014, the program has funded 103 projects totaling over just $35 million, including last year's 21 projects and with stimulus funding as well. The next 5310 solicitation will start this summer. You guys will be helping select projects in the fall. Altogether, that's more than $109 million worth of projects that you, the TPB, has selected for the region. As a forum for coordination, we are strategically set up to facilitate and implement various regional initiatives. For example, one of the TPB's focus areas is mitigating climate change, which is part of our mobile emission planning activities. We coordinate with the Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee, or MWAC for short. We will continue to support the climate action planning activities of the Climate, Energy, and Environment Policy Committee, or CEPC, which reports to the COG board. Robust safety activities continue. Following up on the TPB's Regional Roadway Safety Policy established in Resolution R13-2021, and we provide the opportunity to have other policy discussions, including Resolution R18-2022, which details our new greenhouse gas reduction goals and strategies specific to the on-road transportation sector. Our emergency preparedness and management and operations activities feature planning activities in support of our MATOC program. Here are some examples of technical resources we provide. We provide travel monitoring and travel trends analysis, travel demand forecasting, mobile emissions planning, and we support multimodal initiatives. We are developing the Generation 3 travel model, which will be the TPB's next generation travel demand forecasting model. This model is being developed over a 3.5-year period, spanning fiscal 2020 through 2024. Additionally, each year, we get 50 to 70 requests for the regional travel demand forecasting model, its inputs or its outputs. We are moving towards data-driven performance outcomes. We provide travel, traffic, and demographic analysis and data sets and visualizations. We provide a variety of communication tools to help us and to help you get the word out, including our biweekly TPB news publication and our active social media presence, including the infographics and videos we've developed that you can use to help describe what you do at the TPB. So our next steps are to develop the revenues and expenditures, and we'll come back to you next month with a document for review. There's a lot that goes into that document, but there's a memo in your packet which includes the part of the UPWP that describes the specific staff work activities for your review and comment. It's the heart, if you will, of UPWP. The memo won't have specific deliverables or schedules, as many tasks straddle fiscal years, but it does itemize all the ongoing activities and planned tasks. All these bullets and tasks will get wrapped up into the big document that you will have next month. The February presentation will highlight the revenues and expenditures, and we'll give you a snapshot of the specific activities that we will be undertaking. We will also be identifying which activities we won't be able to complete this current fiscal year and take the steps to roll them over into the 2024 UPWP, and we call that carryover funding. After board approval in March, we submit it to the feds, and work begins on July 1st. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
So are there any questions for Lynn?
I have one. Brian Lee, City of Law. Thank you, staff, for an excellent report. I do have a question about do you advocate for yourselves enough? And that is, with all the projects going on, could you make this board aware, Conti especially, if you guys think that you're going to need some more staff support, and what does that look like? And what does that look like in the budget? I think that with everything we've got coming up, I'd rather we have enough staff to do what needs to be accomplished, and we need to be aware of that beforehand so that we can help you all plan for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. As a staff director, it's not often I get asked the question, do you need more resources? So I'm glad the question was asked. The good news here is the current federal administration's bipartisan infrastructure law did increase funding for existing programs across the board, federal programs. And the funding coming for metropolitan planning organizations such as the TPB has also gone up. So over the past 6 months, I've been working with the state DOTs to determine exactly what is the increase that the TPB can see in this upcoming fiscal year. And the TPB's budget has not gone up through federal action for more than 20 years. But as you can see, the TPB has never been satisfied just doing what the feds ask them to do. We always go above and beyond, do extra things. For example, in 2016, 2017, we undertook the Long Range Plan Task Force. That was a $500,000 study. That was very critical to result in a 2018 Long Range Plan that was federally recognized as one of the better long-range plans that they have seen amongst the 440 MPOs in the country. It laid out some aspirations, things that we may not have funding today, but it laid out a path to where we would like to be, what are our aspirations. Then 2 years later, climate change became a more pressing issue. It has always been an important issue. It became more pressing issue. The board asked us to do a detailed study. That was another $500,000 initiative that we took upon, and we included that in our 2018 Long-Range Transportation Plan. And I feel that that particular study and that particular initiative was so great in the sense that the goal that this board adopted 4 months before the federal administration said they are considering similar goals for transportation planning. So it showed that the TPB was looking forward and leaning forward in this. So these are the pressures that as a staff director we face. So I was very pleased to read that the federal bill did include increased funding. One of the things that has allowed us to do, and to answer your question, Mr. Lee, in terms of staffing, when the TPB adopted its climate change goal, included in it was to become a resilient, ready region by 2030. Federal planning regulations have now been asking us for a couple of years to do more in transportation resiliency planning. We weren't quite sure what exactly that would mean, and we honestly did not have the staff expertise. And now I'm glad to report that we have hired a new person. We have created a transportation resiliency program, so we are able to put funding into that. And the staff person we have hired is a resiliency expert. They have been doing this work, and they've been doing this work in, for example, in Hampton Roads area, which is very aware and where resiliency is a critical issue. And that is Catherine, our new regional resilience manager. That is one example. We have been under-resourced in terms of looking at emissions and climate impacts, and we have now been able to propose adding another position to help the TPBs work on it. So there are some staffing enhancements that we plan to make that Lynn will discuss next month. Additionally, we've been able to put aside some funding on an ongoing basis to take deeper dive into data. Roadway safety is a very tough nut to crack. Local jurisdictions, state entities are doing everything they can. The trend is being very adamant that it is stuck, it is not moving in the right direction. So we are now planning to make this an annual deep data dive to understand what types of crashes, what type of issues are leading to this unacceptably high fatalities. So we are able to put money into that, which we were not able to. We always wanted to, we were unable to. The last thing I would note is there's a lot of times we are asked from you, rightfully, at a policy level, certain travel trend data. Hey, how many people are indeed going from Bethesda to Tyson? What are the issues that they face? Or how many people exactly in the EEAs are experiencing what level of transit service and what are the deficiencies? These are great questions, but the data for that, when you look at the big data, it is a big blob, it's a black box. So there's a little less uncertainty when we try to respond to your questions. We are now able to put on an ongoing basis significant amount of money to collect our own data, to purchase data, so that we are able to answer your policy questions and to help your decisions. So that is where the staff have been working with the state DOTs. We've been talking with other MPOs. So that's the good news. Again, you give me as a staff director a question that I wanted to fully respond, but at the same time, thank the state DOTs and the federal agencies for providing this additional funding. Thank you.
Thank you. That answered my question.
I know you deal with MDOT's highway safety folks quite a bit, but just as a point of information for your new resiliency professional, Sandy Hertz is our director of climate change, resiliency, and adaptation. And we created that office about 19 months ago at MDOT, and she is aggressively working with all of our TBs on various initiatives tied to resiliency at the Maryland Department of Transportation. So please, I'll give her her contact information so she can reach out to her.
Well, thank you to COG staff for really doing an extraordinary job of what you're required to do. But the initiatives that you've undertaken in the past few years in the area of climate and highway safety are really, again, extraordinary. And these are all high priority issues for us, and you are working very, very hard. And we'll keep asking more of you probably, but that's kind of the nature of things. But again, thank you for the initiatives in those areas. And I know and I suspect others are totally committed to successful outcome. there is one initiative which is very near and dear to me, that is MATOC, which has appeared on our slides, and I'm thinking there may be some folks that don't understand what it is. It was an initiative that came about following 9/11 and the lack of coordination between the transportation agencies. And this is a very important area. So I wondered if you could just take a minute and summarize for the board what it is that MATOC does and how it does it, so that they understand the importance of this emergency response asset.
Certainly, thank you. I appreciate Mr. Snyder's reference to MATOC that was on one of Lynn's slides. Yes, it was more than 3 years of intense discussions at the elected officials level immediately after 9/11. Within a couple of months after that regrettable, unfortunate incident, the region started discussing what could we learn from this so that there is good, ample, real-time coordination between the 24 different jurisdictions, the 3 different states, and maybe 50+ different agencies, and the vast number of people working and commuting from one part of the region to the other. So that was the focus. The impetus or the guiding principle became not necessarily to recreate a new body with different authorities, but to respect and recognize that there are different authorized entities that need to coordinate in real time as to what is the situation, what is being done, and to implement a coordinated action. So that regional coordination across different jurisdictions, across state boundaries, across agencies was the primary focus. And that led to the creation of the Metropolitan Area Transportation creation of this entity called MATOC, and TPB funds provide some of the funding for it. The state DOTs provide a significant portion of it. Andy Meese on your staff is the lead coordinator for MATOC from the TPB. Andy, if you wouldn't mind, take a few minutes to highlight some of the things that they do, including the coordination with the transit agencies that they've begun.
Absolutely. Thank you. Metropolitan Area Transportation Operations Coordination Program, MATOC's easier to say. Yeah, I've been an entity going along for 15 years now, centering on our 3 state DOTs that have, are really excellent DOTs if you look across the country in terms of an operational stance, to have operations centers, to have monitoring of the roadway systems, know what's going on, to have service patrols to get out there and help. And, they can do that in the everyday, and obviously they do that in bigger and bigger emergencies. So, we have this core of looking at the roadways, but they've also taken on transit coordination, sort of in and these are more or less in real time, and especially, between transit and the roadway operations, so that there's a means of coordination of those. They've also taken on a strong role in severe and winter weather responses and activities. Again, we have agencies that are very well positioned in that and very well resourced in that, but going across boundaries, they can have a call. Maybe most of you know COG has long had snow calls. So there was, going back decades, a discussion of whether or not the federal government should be on a certain operating status, for a forecast. But now there's a whole body of information that's gathered for all that decision making of, what the readiness is of various agencies, what weather forecasts are. The National Weather Service is plugged in. Gee, I could go on and on, but this also partners with the rest of COG that has, a lot of communications in general emergency preparedness and response. And MATOC plays an excellent and critical role in providing transportation information to that. And I'd love to tell you about the tools and the data sets and the visualizations that this organization has provided or helped shepherd that means that, all of our transportation operations personnel have very good situational awareness, much better than it was in the days following 9/11.
We'll be happy to bring MATOC personnel to do a presentation of exactly how they function and what services they provide. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Collins. Thank you for all the work that you do. I know we put a lot on you, on our staff to do this work and fulfill all the federal requirements and also meet the needs, our transportation needs for the region. I'm wondering if you can help me understand a little better, because it is such a high priority. We have agreed to be very aggressive in terms of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. How that work fits into this unified work plan, and how not just fulfilling the 12 strategies that have been laid out and discussed in the past, but since we know we need to continue to push forward and go even beyond those strategies in order to meet the aggressive goals that we've set as a board. How are we looking to go beyond those goals and also continue to ensure that we meet the need for greenhouse gas emission reductions in the region, and how is that incorporated in
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bowen, for the question. I appreciate the question because sometimes the way our budget document is written, it is not a clear line between the activities that we do and here are the goals that the board has adopted or the priorities that the board has enunciated, because the budget document is prepared in a way to reflect the federal requirements, because the feds are, after the TPB adopts the budget, the feds have to approve it. So TPB adopting it does not give staff the green light to go and spend the money until the feds approve it. So it's written from their perspective, hey, here is your requirement, here are the activities that we are planning to do. So that's why it's not always easy. But I appreciate the question and the opportunity to expand on it, because there was earlier a public comment made about it. If you look at the 14 strategies that the TPB endorsed to help reduce greenhouse gases from the on-road sector, many of them are policies that have to be enacted at local government level, state government level, federal government level. The TPB, because we are federally funded, is federally prohibited from lobbying. So the best we can do is collect some data, do some analysis, and provide the effectiveness of a particular strategy. We spent a little north of $300,000 doing a study on regional roadway safety that painted a picture not at the national level, but at the national capital region level. Where were the crashes happening? Where were the fatalities happening? What type of incidents were causing these fatalities? And we took 12 months, hired a subject matter expert, and we came up with about 25 different strategies that can be implemented by the transportation agencies to help reduce them. Right? So that is just an example of what the TPB can do. Of the 14 strategies, many of them are policies. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But one theme is transitioning all of our vehicles to clean fuel. And there's a lot of work being done about it. The other theme is reducing travel or reducing the consumption of fossil fuel. How can you reduce the consumption of fossil fuel? Number of different ways. You can increase transit. So we've been asking our member agencies to come up with transit improvements. WMATA is spending a significant amount of resources completely re-examining their bus service. 80% of the transit riders in our region use WMATA system. So I'm glad that WMATA is now re-examining their entire route system. They are also looking at their fare structure, because we have said we need to make transit affordable. The second strategy that TPB said, bring jobs and housing closer together. We have a significant issue in having adequate number of housing, and we have an even more complicated issue in that housing being affordable at all income levels. So people at lower income levels are being forced to live miles and miles away, and traditionally transit does not work over 30, 40 miles. So, but the jobs are in the regional core. So we have an imbalance of where the jobs and housing is in this region. The TPB rightfully pointed that out, and the TPB said, bring jobs and housing closer together is a policy priority. That is the work that we have done, but we don't explicitly lay it out. So now the question becomes, how is it implemented? How does that work into our long-range plan? We are going to kick off the update to our long-range plan. That is where members can advise us what are the changes they are willing to make. I just today reported that in Maryland, they are investing $10 million to do a detailed study to bring transit to Charles County, one of the outer lying areas, and to use the chairman's words, some of the regions have considerable urban traits to that, where traditional transit doesn't work. So that is being done. But when we say how else is the TPB working to advance mode share scheme of reducing greenhouse gases, it is through all of these things. Another example I will cite, again, not explicitly listed in the work program document, but there is funding that we provide. We are working with the Council of Governments Planning Directors to re-examine the population, employment, and housing projection. It's called Round 10.0. They have hired a subject matter expert consultant and asked them the question, what does a post-COVID world look like to you? What can this region expect in terms of jobs, housing, and population growth in a post-COVID world? That is critical information for TPB because that controls the amount of travel and the type of travel and the demand for our roadway system services. There is funding for that. That helps address climate change. So there are a number of these activities that I'll be happy the next time we share with you the detailed UPWP to highlight what are all the different areas that are consistent with advancing many of our goals, whether that goal is to reduce the fatalities on the roadway system, increasing transit ridership, or reducing on-road greenhouse gas.
Thank you.
I was just going to add, I think the explanation that was given about MATOC was excellent, but that was actually, that organization, that idea to develop MATOC came out of the UASI process over a decade ago, where there was a defined gap in the operational communications between the transportation entities and the three primary jurisdictions of DMV, and the groups came together to create that, which has really helped a lot in making sure that any situation we have real-time communications between key players to make sure our transportation system works as efficiently as possible, no matter what the challenge is. So, and that came out because of COG. So,
are there any further questions or comments?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Erickson. You gave me so much to add to my 5 minutes elevator speech about what TPB does. It's probably now 7 minutes. And I have to say there is an additional one that I appreciate a lot from working with you and with everybody here. This is an educational facility for elected members, and it helps us a lot to help our, own constituencies to understand things that happen, beyond the boundaries of jurisdiction, whether this jurisdiction is small or big, that plays absolutely that makes no difference. We all need a broader view, and thank you, Mr. Director Canty, about describing the general, focus of TPB. But I want to follow up with into the question of Mayor Bowen on this. So, last year, one thing that was interesting last year is that we really felt the pressure, especially on climate change. We felt the pressure to deliver, and and I understand that TPB is not appropriating funds and not, shaping or, proposing or drafting local jurisdictional legislation. But definitely you asked us to give you a set of priorities and strategies, and we had, some that we really agreed upon, right? And there were others that we said, oh, that's a very interesting thing. What's going on? So congestion charges or, destination parking, not free anymore, etc. So this begins to be very specific because on the top of everything else, we said that by 2030, we want to be 50% down. And this is a goal now that we approved that. We really voted on it. So I guess the spirit of the question is, are we going to see resources being dedicated to this, to have answers, sooner rather than later that give, that frame the way that local jurisdictions have to adapt and have to make decisions that they make it every day right now. Electrification is a very big question. A lot of us have to act under, time pressure. It's not something that can go forever.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Tuck, if the way I take your question is, what additional data or analysis can staff provide on any of those 14 strategies that might help the member jurisdictions use that information to work towards taking action? That's how I understand the question. That's something certainly we can do. One of the primary, at least in staff perspective, one of the primary asks was, what type of action might provide how much greenhouse gas reduction? That was the first question we were asked. And we provided that. We now have told you, if you impose a $10 fee for every trip that comes into Washington, D.C., if you implemented that region-wide, how many tons of greenhouse gases could we reduce? And how much of the 50% goal will that contribute to? So we have given that answer. So if the second question is, what will the impact of such a fee be for each one of us? That is something we can look at. We'll have to do another study. It's going to take a little bit of time. We will have to figure out how many residents of one jurisdiction are coming into DC and how many trips are those and what have you. And then we can say, okay, multiply that by $10, this is what it would be. So I think if you look at all of those 14 strategies, if there are specific information analysis that members need, we are always here to see how best we can put the resources towards developing that. I mention all of this because I know that many of these strategies are already being looked at and worked at some of your jurisdiction level and at the state level. I know, for example, in Maryland, because I've made some presentations to that, Maryland has had a climate change commission for the past 8 years. They have developed some very detailed strategies. They have even developed some legislative templates that they have been working on. So we don't want to be redundant. We don't want to be duplicative. But if there are legitimate requests for information, for data, we'll definitely be happy to do that. And again, go back to Brian's question. I'm happy that we are now, at least I'm now able to say we can do it because there is likely going to be more funding available for us to do that. So happy to look into that as we proceed.
Thank you, much appreciated. And by the way, since you mentioned the, a climate change commission, et cetera, this is, propagating through the region that now we have specialist bodies that look at that, and in the same way that you get planning directors and transportation directors, we may consider at some point to get these specialists as well as a third. It's more work, I understand. This is why Mr. Lee's question is really very, very pertinent. Thank you.
I don't want to steal your thunder from tomorrow, but there is already a step that COG is taking towards bringing that subject matter experts in our region, right?
Absolutely. This is a great moment for bundling and funneling energy and expertise in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay. Thank you, Lynn. Agenda item 9, we will bring back at a later meeting. Conti, is there anything you'd like to say about, the environmental justice analysis?
Absolutely. Once again, I'll start with really saying we are sorry that we are unable to present this to you today. We presented to your technical committee. The package, the executive summary report is in your packet. I would encourage you to please review that. Send me your comments, questions, and thoughts so that when we bring that presentation back, we'll be able to respond to those as well. And I will try not to steal my colleague Sergio's thunder, but I will only say that this is really good news. Lynn said we are going to be audited in March 8th and 9th for TPB to ensure that we are following all the federal requirements. Doing this analysis is one such requirement, and we have completed it, and that was the idea of trying to bring it to you today. But the good news is not that we have completed it. The good news is the long-range transportation plan that you all adopted last July, the current set of transit, highway, and non-motorized projects that you all plan to implement between now and 2045 will not pose a desperate and disproportionate impact on the low-income or the racial or ethnic minority populations in our region. That's a test. That's a good outcome. The analysis also showed that without these transportation projects, there would have been a significant and desperate impact on low-income and racial and ethnic minority populations in the region. So the projects are helping address that. That's the good news. There is still, but the analysis also shows that we can do even better. There are some metrics where the benefit experienced by the low-income and racial and ethnic minorities is not quite the same as that experienced by the other population. That to me means we can do better. Sometimes there are some metrics that shows both all the population is experiencing a disadvantage in the future or a burden, but the burden experienced by low-income and racial and ethnic minorities is just a tad bit more than the others. So those are areas where we can do better, and I really hope that the next plan update we will see projects, programs, and policies forwarded into the next plan where we can continue to make those improvements. So that is what you will hear and see. But I welcome you and encourage you to please read the report. Send me your questions and comments. We'll compile them, and we will try our best to respond to them in our next briefing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So the last item on our agenda for today is draft technical input solicitation on Visualize 2050. I mentioned in my remarks that this year we will begin to update the long-range transportation plan we adopted last year, earlier than usual, so that we can re-examine our transportation projects and priorities to better suit the current priorities. Lynn at this time will brief us on the process and schedule for updating our projects, programs, and policies for the future. No action today. However, we will be asked to approve the solicitation next month to kick off the plan update. Lynn?
All right, thank you, Chair Collins. I'm back. All right, so there are three main takeaways I want you guys to walk away with from today's presentation. First, the approval of our technical inputs solicitation, TIS. It's the traditional kickoff of the TPB's next plan update. You will be asked to approve the TIS in February, and when you do approve it, it means Visualize 2050 is officially underway. So did you see that? We're calling it Visualize 2050. I'm excited about that. Anyway, second of all, we've always developed a technical input solicitation. This is what we've always done, but they've looked a lot different over the years. This one's more succinct and is a direct reflection of feedback we've received from you guys. Third, this plan development activity is entirely focused on the constrained element of the plan, also referred to as the project list. I say it like that because there's all kinds of stuff in there, but remember, our plan is so much more than just this little constraint element. So if you separate that out, we're focused on the constraint element. This activity involves a ton of work, a ton of your people, and a ton of coordination, and a ton of data entry. So the schedule here is deceptive, so please make sure that you and your staff are setting enough time to meet the schedule. There are 23 agencies entering data. There are 626 conformity records in the current plan. So it's just a ton of work that we've got to accomplish the next couple of months. We've also developed a handy, frequently asked questions document that's posted on our materials page. I hope you all had a chance to read. It summarizes why we're doing this now and addresses some of the expectations around the newer ways we are approaching plan development. All right, so this slide just lists the major tasks that have to happen as part of plan development in general. So what do these 23 agencies really do when they start the process? So everybody starts out basically with an evaluation of what's in there in the first place. What did we just approve? I mean, I don't know, you got to go back and look, right? So this plan, and all of them, they're a snapshot in time. So keeping that in mind, every single project is at a different phase of development. Every single project, for those projects that are actual projects, each agency tracks them differently. Every project has a different project manager. It's very complicated. I just want you to remember that. Tracking this information down is time consuming. There is not one single place you can find every single project in this region. There just isn't. So we also, number 2 here, we have to provide a snapshot in time of our financial situation. Financial forecasts all have to be redone. Project costs all have to be updated. Once agencies know enough about the project, like how much more expensive are they right now? And once they know enough about how much future forecasted funding is available, then they can look at what additional projects to submit or changes to make. So I'm talking about number 3 here. Number 4, then we run the air quality conformity analysis on those projects, and eventually the plan is approved. This technical input solicitation confirms the schedule and what exact data entry we need to put all of this together for your plan approval in December 2024. So back in the fall, we started to talk about this new plan, what the schedule could look like. We did make some modifications since then, so you're not losing your mind if you think, oh, wait, June, we didn't talk about that. We didn't. We added more time to the beginning, so there would be time for review and coordination and public input. So when we get to June 30th, we're hoping there aren't that many surprises. So speaking of feedback, this and other feedback provided from the board helped us define the structure of our technical input solicitation document. So this draft document now includes the 2024 completion date. All projects must be resubmitted. All data must be re-entered. Projects currently under construction or currently funded with federal, state, regional, local, or private funds are intended to be kept in Visualize 2050. This also identifies all the TPB resources that we're hoping you all are using when you're considering adding projects to this plan. All of that's in our TIS. So this document is 8 whole pages, 8 pages. So hopefully, I'm hoping you'll be able to read all that. And if you have, it contains the purpose, the process, the schedule. I need comments preferably by January 27th so we can work it through the technical committee and get their reactions because they're the ones actually doing the data entry and the work. So the solicitation document states that the purpose is to request technical inputs from our 23 TPB member sponsor agencies, the 23 agencies that are entering this project information. The process includes, among other things, using a new zero-based budgeting approach. All projects in the currently approved plan, that's 2045, must be re-examined and resubmitted with revisions as appropriate. So we'll have a presentation on this next month, but basically this means if a project is currently active and has current funding, meaning not the 2045 or 2050 forecasted funding, current funding, the short-term funding that your capital programs all have, the TPB intends to keep those projects in Visualize 2050. The data still has to be resubmitted. So I know that's a tough concept. We'll do better with visualization next month. So we're starting the database with a clean slate. That means even if maybe you have a project, like take the Silver Line, for example. Well, the Silver Line's still going to be in there. It's super far along compared to some of these other projects. So at the end of the day, now I lost my place. Any project, as you're re-entering the data, you can make changes, you can make them more in line with our TPB policy initiatives. That's part of the total evaluation. Again, I'll talk about that more next month. Okay, what's required? Who is doing what? So the 23 member sponsoring agencies, they're going to all go back, like I mentioned, review and update the revenue estimates, review and update planned period costs for operations and maintenance, identify funds for expansion. They're going to review projects in the current plan to resubmit them. They can propose new projects. The member agencies are also going to be looking to update the TIP because we'll be updating the TIP at the same time. What is your role? What should TPB members be doing? Besides knowing that there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, we're hoping you're communicating and coordinating with your respective transportation agencies, that you'll be reviewing the proposed updates, considering your own local priorities with regional goals and the public input we'll be providing over the next couple of months. And at the end of this, next November, you're going to be approving the inputs used for the regional air quality conformity analysis. So this is the newer section. So we provided links to all of the TPB products and resources that should help inform agency decisions. Agencies should be looking at each project and evaluating each project against the TPB goals and policy priorities. Findings from the TPB scenario analysis, both of which are documents you've just read in December and in November and December of this year. And then the next several on this list, it's all approved in Visualize 2045, which you've all read. Our performance analysis results, environmental justice analysis, Conti alluded to. You'll get those, you have it, you'll get a presentation on it soon. Our Voices of the Region public information, are using our TPB equity emphasis area tool, the high capacity transit station tools, and frequently asked questions that I mentioned that we included here. So lastly, the TPB staff are providing a reorganized list of all the current projects in the approved plan. This has always been a part of the process as it happens in the background, but we've never highlighted projects, sort of organized them this way before. So there are about 70% of the projects in the plan right now are active projects. So a project stays in the plan until it's completed. So for example, I'm pretty sure none of you are going to have comments on the Silver Line, right? But there are projects in the plan that aren't as far along. So a zero-based budgeting approach focuses efforts on projects that are in a developmental stage where all of the resources on this list can be used to influence the scope of such projects. And that exact phrase is in that frequently asked questions list. So if you forget what I say now, all you got to do is pull up the frequently asked questions. It says the same thing. So our schedule, the next two slides talk about what has to happen in order to keep on the master schedule. So if anything slips off, even with all these different people working on it, we're not going to be able to prove it in December 2024. So far, we've started our draft exempt and non-exempt project list. In February, we're going to ask you to approve this 8-page document, the TIS, and it kicks off the projects, kicks off the call for projects and the plan development. So in January and March, you're going to review all this list that I just went through. You're going to examine the inputs, that the exempt and not exempt list, which we're going to share with you in February. The big item here is that we're going to schedule a meeting between board members and transportation agencies. We're going to schedule 3 meetings, one in Maryland, one in DC, and one in Virginia, where you guys will have a working session with the transportation agencies. What's in the plan? What are we thinking? Where are we? And that's going to happen sometime this spring. Meanwhile, once summer starts, those conversations can continue. It doesn't have to be sponsored by us. We're hoping you guys are meeting with your 23 agencies, knowing what's planning to be entered, because the agency staff have to re-enter every single project record. There are 625 conformity records, just in case I didn't say it loud enough. All that has to be done by June 30th. Preliminary inputs are due for plan and air quality conformity analysis. So then what happens September, October, November, that's kind of business as usual for those of you who have been here before. We release the information for the public comment for a month. Then we provide the comments to you in a succinct, summarized manner. You guys think about it for a month and come back in November to approve the draft inputs. Then it takes a really long time for the air quality analysis to be run. A year later, we'll ask you to approve the plan and the tip. So next steps, what are you walking away from today? Okay, I need you to look at that 8-page TIS. I need comments by January 27th so we can work with the technical committee on that. February 15th is when you will be asked to approve that final version of the document and we're kicking off Visualize 2045. We'll also be sharing, and you'll be hearing about what this non-exempt, exempt list. I'm not comfortable with the phrasing. I have to work on this. But really, it's the current plan list reorganized, what's funded, what's not funded. And then staff will also be collecting comments as we do every month through our TPB comment page and sharing with the project owners. The comments on the project, TPB staff, these are not TPB staff projects. These are your projects. So we're going to share with you what we hear. And then spring 2023, like I mentioned, we'll set up a meeting to make sure everyone has all the same information, everybody's on the same page. June 30th is when the inputs are due. So that's a quick summary. Everything is listed in 4 pages of that 8-page is a very detailed schedule. So when you act on that schedule, it sort of solidifies it so we all stay on track. So that concludes my probably too long presentation. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Lynn?
I have a question. This is Sakina Khan from the DC Office of Planning. Hi, Lynn. Thank you for that very informative and rapid review of information. It was very helpful. I'm just trying to understand a little bit more in terms of how Visualize 2050 will differ from Visualize 2045. I realize that there is it's one of the questions in the FAQ. But you did emphasize that Visualize 2050 will focus on the constrained elements. So in terms of opportunities to re-review policy, including around equity and land use, is Visualize 2050 framed more as a check against the existing TPP goals and policy priorities rather than delving more into them and possibly revisiting them? And I'm asking that in the context of this, it's still a new plan, right? As opposed to an update to Visualize 2045, or is this being framed as an update? But I guess I'm unclear about how this differs or how this is consistent and a follow-up to 2045.
So before Conti goes, I just will say this activity is very specifically about one piece of the plan, one part. So this is the project list. This is one not tiny, but one part of the plan, not the whole plan. Conti.
So thank you, Sakina. So there were a few different questions there. The first one, is this a new plan or is this a plan update? I apologize for going back to the federal regs. The feds don't recognize a new plan. An MPO is supposed to be in a continuous state of planning. So a new plan was established by the TPB in the early 60s. Since then, we have been updating the plan, right? So that's the technical answer. So I apologize for the technical answer. But 2050 is, as far as the feds are concerned, we are updating the plan that we adopted last year. So that said, the contents of the plan could all be different and could be new. That is exactly what the TPB zero-based budgeting approach is all about. The TPB said, even though we are updating the plan, in the past, when we were updating the plan, we were only focused on what new projects are coming in, or are there any projects that are being changed. If a project was not being changed, we just said it's going to remain in the plan. This time, the TPB has said, no, the plan will be considered empty. We are going to send all the projects back to every agency and ask them to re-examine it, and so we are going to repopulate the plan. So from that perspective, one could describe it as a new plan, totally, thoroughly scrubbed
plan. But from the federal perspective, we are still updating the 2022 plan, right? So that's one part. In terms of changes to policies, the long-range transportation plan of the TPB has a aspirational component. Those are the aspirational initiatives that the TPB adopted after the long-range plan task force did their work over a 2.5-year period. Subsequently, we enhanced that aspirational initiatives section this last year by adding the climate change mitigation initiatives and the strategies that the board adopted. So that has already been done. We are not planning to revisit the aspirational initiatives or the climate change mitigation strategies, the 14 strategies, because those were just adopted after almost 4.5 years of collective effort and thinking of the region. Those parts are not being updated as of now. What is being updated are other policies, such as right now the HOV requirement in Virginia is HOV 2. Will it remain at 2 or will it go to 3? Will the timings be only during peak period or will it be during all times of the day? Secondly, not transportation, but still a policy input, cooperative forecast. We have been using COG cooperative forecast around 9.2. COG has separately been working on a major update to not only reflect the 2020 census data, but also to reflect the latest economic outlook, not just for the region, but for the country. That cooperative forecast 10.0 will be used in this long-range plan. So that could be significantly different. I don't know how 9.2 and 10.0 will differ, but the number of people, the number of jobs, the location of the people and the jobs, the households, all of that could change. So that would be a substantive change. So different things are coming together for this Visualize 2050. And the last thing is we are now extending the horizon, the end year, from 2045 to 2050. That will allow us to reflect additional growth as well as additional transportation revenue. So hopefully, Sakina, I've tried to identify some of the main elements of this plan. And the projects are what informs conformity, but that's kind of where the TPB has said that the mix of projects that they adopted last July, they felt could be better optimized to advance our goals. And that is the hope, that the mix of transit, highway, and non-motorized projects we will see come November of this year will be different. And when we analyze them in the early part of 2024, we will begin to see that the region's transportation system's performance would have been meaningfully different from the one that we adopted last year. That's the hope.
Thank you. I realized that I had packed in a few questions, so I appreciate you going through them. And part of what was driving my questions is that when I look back at Visualize 2045, there was a section on factors affecting our future, including equity and climate change, and the relationship between land use and population, and then emerging technology. And all of these topics, I think, have come up for good reason in discussions at TPB and at COG Planning Directors Committee, which I sit on. And so I was partly wondering to what extent will those factors be brought forward into this update, whilst taking into account that there's also the TP vision goals that look like they will be part of a baseline. So just trying to understand how this all kind of fits together and gets considered as part of the 2050 update.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. If there's no further questions, this will mark the end of today's meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for February the 15th, 2023. I will see you all at that time, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
I'm not, I wasn't. You're not wrong. I wasn't up for election last year. I'm not till 24.
Hey,